Hello, do you know about the Leo Frank case?
Holy scones, no, tell me more about it.
Leo Frank was a Jewish guy who managed a pencil company. He was accused of raping and murdering a 13-year-old girl. After the trial was held, they found Leo guilty of his crimes. The Ku Klux Klan re-emerged as a result of Leo's case. After Leo was sentenced to life in prison, he stayed there for 2 months and then he was kidnapped.
That was a mouthful. Say, have you heard about the 1906 Atlanta?
No, do go on.
Black elite caused some rascal tension, and he accomplished this by the advancement of rights to blacks. Some whites disagreed and he disagreed with them. Blacks were building communities and were becoming wealthy with all their rights. Whites were going against them blacks and thinking that them blacks should not have none of their rights, as they were becoming wealthier than some whites. Some consequences of the riot were that the black community was retrenched, both the residences and businesses. And deaths. Lots of deaths.
Alright, you purple plate uppy, have you heard of Booker T. Washington?
No.
Well, he wanted whites and blacks to be equal and economically work together. He believed that blacks and whites are equal but don't have to mix socially. He believed African American children should be involved in education of crafts, industrial, farming skills, and cultivation skills. Webb believed in racial segregation, whereas Booker did not. He was also an educator.
Have you ever heard of the Henry Grady and the Bourbon Triumvirate?
Why do I even try learning?
Well, John B. Gordon, Alfred E. Colquitt, Joseph E. Brown. Whites are better than blacks, you know, the typical race pointing back then, not attending to the needs of the citizens when they were in need. 1872-189 Expand industries.
Have you heard of Henry Grady and the International Cotton Expo?
No, but as you can see, I'm not interested, so please tell me.
Okay, Henry Grady was in power during the New South era. He was also a newspaper maker. Imagine that he also helped the international cotton expansion. He also brought investors into the U.S. to raise money. The expo was so important because it showed that the city officials could work together and it brought publicity to the city. This was also important because it raised about 200,000 resident admission funds. He was a newspaper editor/author from newspaper.
Have you heard of Tom Watson and the Populists?
Nops.
Well, Populists were parts of a labor organization who joined together to make the new political party known as the Populists. The RFD was a bill passed by Watson, meaning that rural families would get their mail for free. Watson did not believe in racial equality, but those views changed later as his terms in office graduated. Tom Watson was a banker, a newspaper editor, a politician.
HMMF, have you ever heard the Plessy and Ferguson case?
I don't care. Tell me.
Well, the factor that led to the case between Plessy versus Ferguson was the idea that blacks were becoming equals to whites, the dominant race. The outcome of the court case was the Jim Crow laws were established. Separate but equal was a law that was very misleading, for it did not let blacks be equal, it prevented blacks from voting, gave them inferior/terrible facilities, and made blacks feel inferior. Jim Crow laws were the laws known as separate but equal.
Well, thoughts pointils information. Have you heard of W.E.B. Du Bois? I'll tell you anyway. The Niagara movement was a movement that was created to destroy the Jim Crow laws, and was later referred to as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. NAACP stands for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and W.E.B. Du Bois helped create the NAACP. He wanted at least 10% of the African population to be educated, the talented 10th, he called them. W.E.B. Du Bois's opinion differed from he wanted social and political integration of the races and equal rights immediately.
Well, seems that we are done here.
Yeah, it sure seems that way, doesn't it?
Life is like that sometimes. When we are done with a project, This project was brought to you by Stephen and Michael.
Let's go dent brew.